All right. Hello, Cloud Gurus, and welcome. Today, we are talking about the Amazon Web Services Cloud Practitioner exam strategy and question breakdown, which is quite a mouthful. But anyway, we are going to go through a whole bunch of awesome stuff for you today. Welcome to the stream. I hope that you're going to enjoy it a lot. And if you're catching this as a replay, then that's great too. You can still follow along and get lots of value out of it. My name's Mattias Andersson, and I have with me, though, a great person that is going to share some wonderful things that she has been working on and some insights about this exam today. So I have Kesha Williams here with me. So Kesha is an AWS machine learning hero. She is an Alexa champion. She has a long background in software development. I wouldn't be surprised if she's, I don't know, a neurosurgeon and, I don't know, some rocket scientist or all sorts of other things, but those are probably top secret. So, but in any case, Alicia, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure, and I don't think I have time to be a neurosurgeon. It sounds like a lot of fun, but nobody has time for that. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Kesha Williams, like Mattia said. I have been in IT for going on 26 years, mainly in the software engineering space. And honestly, I don't know where all of the time went. Like you mentioned, I am an Alexa champion. That simply means I love Alexa. I love building skills and I love sharing my lessons learned. And I'm also an AWS machine learning hero. The same there. I love machine learning and sharing my lessons learned. I'm currently a principal training architect here at A Cloud Guru, and I specialize in AWS.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Now, you've been working on something pretty interesting. So why don't you tell the people about the course that you've been working on?
Yeah, so let me go to my next slide. If you have been considering the Certified Cloud Practitioner exam, I'm very excited to tell you that we've recently reimagined our CCP Certified Cloud Practitioner course, and it is currently free for the month of July. And when I say reimagined, we basically looked at the learning philosophy behind the course and started from that approach. And we made the course interactive and nonlinear. And people always say, well, what does that mean? Well, essentially, we got rid of the slide decks and we've created interactive web pages for each lesson. And so as you're listening to me explain the topics, you can be really hands-on with scrolling through the web page, clicking and interacting. And it's a great way that people learn. And if you look on this slide, you'll see the green link that actually goes to the interactive diagrams or what I call the interactive web pages. And if you want to access just the lessons and hear me explain the topics, you'll have to create a free account on the A Cloud Guru platform. And so, like I said, the course is free for the month of July, and the interactive diagrams, that link will always be free. So that's a little bit about the new course. I'm just very excited about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited that people can also get a hold of that course for free until the end of July 2021. So that is an amazing deal here. And
Yeah.
we were talking a little bit earlier. I had a question for you. So if people are just starting the course now, do you think that they'd be able to work through it in that time if they really buckled down?
Yes, if you're really dedicated, the CCP, it's really foundational information. It's a great starting point. So you don't really have to go deep, deep, deep into the services to be able to pass the exam. So if you start now, you still have time to become an AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner for free. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think there's a link attached to the video so people can check that out. But let's talk a little bit more about the cloud practitioner. Some people have joined us and they might not actually know sort of what this is all about. So let's maybe move into some of the questions that people have about that. So I think the
Yes.
first, yeah, sorry, go ahead. I think the first question that we often get is where does this certification fit in with the other AWS certifications?
Yes, we get a lot of questions about this certification. And like Matthias said, one question that we always hear is, well, where does this fit in? So if you look at this slide, we've gone through and defined several learning paths. And if you go to the ACG platform, you're able to see all of the learning paths that we've created. And if you look at this screen, we've set out like 3 example paths. So cloud architect, cloud developer, or DevOps. And if you notice, the cloud practitioner is an optional starting point. So it's a great place to start if you're new to the cloud and you want to eventually become an architect or a developer or work in DevOps or even work in machine learning. And so, yeah, the cloud practitioner is the foundation starting point, especially if you're new to the cloud.
Awesome. One thing I wanted to mention is that this path that you've got a screenshot of here is also from my other video, the AWS Certification Guide. So we can drop a link to that as well so that people can check
Yes.
that out. But if you're watching live, you should stay here because this is going to be a great stream regardless, and you can check that out afterwards. So, all right. So this is a really useful thing for people to understand a little bit more about sort of how it fits together. But people sort of go to the next question, which is, what are the key services that we might be looking at in this certification exam?
Right. That is another question that I often get. And when I show you the next slide, do not let it scare you. I'll just go ahead and show you the slide. There are a lot of services. So for the Certified Cloud Practitioner exam, you will be tested on not all of the services, but the major core services. So compute services like Lambda and EC2, networking like VPC, all of the databases. I just have DynamoDB and RDS on this slide, but you have to know all of the databases, storage services like S3, content delivery like CloudFront, security like IAM, data analytics, machine learning, developer tools like Cloud9, integration tools like Simple Notification Service, SNS, or an SQS, and monitoring and budgets and billing. Now, it sounds like I've covered everything. Now, there are a lot of services on the exam, but there are some that you don't have to worry about. So, for example, like the blockchain services, the game tech like Lumberyard, and there are some other services. But just know, going into the exam, you really have to understand the core and foundational AWS services. And you're lucky that the CCP course covers everything that you need to know, so you can check it out.
Yeah, I would say don't panic. Like you were saying, it's
Yeah,
really not as overwhelming as it feels like, and that's the
right.
value of having a course that guides you through this. In fact, I would take a look at that list of services and use that almost as a wow. So if I'm going to go through this course and learn this stuff, which is totally accessible to anyone who's going to jump in to learn these things, then I'm going to actually understand all of those things. Like that's a really great
Yeah,
result, right?
yeah.
And this actually ties in a lot to a question that was just asked in the comments. RK asked, will this certification add value in the career path? And I would say a resounding yes. This is the foundation of everything you're doing in cloud, in AWS in particular, but you're actually going to learn a lot of stuff that even would apply to the general cloud, using cloud more generally, I mean. So you're going to understand why you would want to use different things. You're going to understand the different types of services, choices that you have, trade-offs that you have to balance between things like, well, how much control do I want to have over this? But actually, if I have control, then I also have to manage it. I have the responsibility. So maybe I'm not actually as willing to take on all of that cost as I thought I was. So these are the types of things that really come into this, and they're critical in every single role. So there's no question to me that that it will absolutely add value to your career path. Do you disagree, Kesha?
I totally agree. And when I think about the CCP course and the CCP exam, I'll talk about this later, but the exam is scenario based. So in the course, I make sure that I'm not only teaching you about the services like the name and what it's used for, but I'm also using like real world use cases so you understand how all of the different services fit together so that you can build cloud apps. So yeah, I totally agree with that. It's a pretty important foundational piece.
Yeah, and actually, what you were just mentioning there about using different ways of leading people through it, one of the things that I'll say that you probably wouldn't say yourself, but is that people are constantly talking about Kesha's courses and how helpful they have been for them to understand. The concepts are explained in a way that people just they can make sense of, they can use, they can move forward in their learning. So honestly, I think it's an awesome thing that you can go and take Kesha's CCP course. So this is the context for what we're looking at today. This is the Certified Cloud Practitioner for Amazon Web Services is really the exam that we're talking about. But we're going to do something as we go through the rest of this time together. So what we're going to do is we're going to put up some questions on the screen. And then you are going to have a bit of time to read and answer those questions as if you were in the exam. Now, if you don't know this material yet, that's actually just fine. Just look at some things, think about it, figure out what you might make of it, and where you would be learning new things if you wound up going through the course and studying for this exam. If you have been studying for the exam, or if you've maybe even taken some deeper ones, use this opportunity to take a look at these questions and make sure that you really understand what's going on in them. Understand the question itself, so the scenario, the reason behind that question, and then understand all of the options. Figure out which options are wrong and which options are right. And I say options because sometimes you have to answer more than one response to get the question right. So we're going to have a little sample question here. And we're going to, my thing's resetting itself. All right, we're going to walk through a sample question just so you get the feel for it. This isn't a question that would be on your exam.
Definitely
but we're
not. This question, you will not see this question.
Maybe one day if you take over AWS and have some impact. I don't know. No. This is just a question to get a feel for it. So the question would be on your screen. You would read it. Question like, of the following services, which one is Kesha's favorite? Well, that's probably why it's not on the Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. But A, Direct Connect. B, Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2. C, Simple Storage Service, S3. D, SageMaker, or E, CloudFront. So if you had to answer one of those options, how about we test that out now? So take a look in the chat. If you're watching this as a replay, then maybe find yourself a notepad or a piece of paper or something, because one of the key parts to this is actually committing to an answer. So do we get some answers coming through in the chat? I see a little bit coming through.
And I'll say, if you were paying attention earlier, you know a little bit about me. You should be able to answer this easy.
There you go. Well, but you do actually have to tie it back to some understanding of AWS services as well. So
that is true.
There's a little bit of actual AWS knowledge that you need for this. All right, so we see some answers coming in.
AWS knowledge.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we have some answers coming in, and I will say that some of them are correct.
Okay.
But Kesha, do you want to walk us through here? Tell us. How would you go about answering a question like this?
How would I? Well, I already know myself.
So. Oh, well, I mean, so there you go. You just jump to the right answer.
I just go straight to the right answer. But I would try to find context clues in the question. I would have to know a little bit about this Kesha person. And like Mattias said, I'd have to know a little bit about AWS. So, Kesha's favorite.
Well, so Kesha's favorite, let me see. So, yeah, I mean, what I know about you is that you're really into machine learning. So I would pick D, SageMaker.
You already knew the answer.
Well, I did, yeah. I mean, it's technically cheating. But I did know the first time I saw it, too. So, you know, hopefully I get the points for that. We had a number of people who got the correct answer there as well.
Yay.
And yeah. So it's because AWS SageMaker, Amazon SageMaker, I don't know which one they call it, whatever, that's always
it's Amazon.
Amazon SageMaker. Yeah. All right, well, there you go. That is all about making it so that all of us more normal people and not the machine learning brains can still use machine learning. And even the people who really are like stellar at machine learning can still use it to optimize, to streamline a lot of the stuff they're working on. So it's all about taking advantage of machine learning and making it accessible to people. So that's the one. All right. So
Okay.
for the real questions that we're going to get into in just a minute here, we're going to give you a countdown, a time limit for you to answer the question. And we're going to give 1 minute per question. Now, the reason we're going to give you 1 minute per question is not just because we made something up. It's because when you take a look at the number of questions that you have to answer in the exam, and you take a look at how many minutes you get in the exam to answer all of those questions, and you consider that you might need a little bit of extra time to double check some things at the end, you really don't want to be spending too much more than a minute per question. In some cases, you'll answer them quicker. You can sort of earn yourself a little bit more time for some of the other ones. In some cases, you might need to go over a little bit, and that can be all right, especially if you earn some time in the other ones. But if it's 65 questions, which I just double checked it is, and if it's 90 minutes, which it is, then a minute per question gives you a bit of time at the end to double check your answers. And that's actually one of the useful things to know, is that you can go back to the other questions after you've finished answering all the other ones, double check your answers, you can flag things, and we'll get into a little bit more of this as we go along. But I wanted to set that context. So should we jump into the first question, or did you have something else you wanted to?
Yes, let's get
All right.
started with some of
All
these
right.
questions.
So question number 1, I'm going to try and time this here. All right, go. Go ahead and read and answer the question. About halfway through now, so hopefully you've had a chance to read all the stuff and you're trying to figure out which one this might be. Actually, which two, I should clarify. When you have an answer, feel free to put it in the chat, or let us know what your answer is. See some answers rolling in. Very good, very good. All right. And time is up. So we've seen a number of people put their answers in. I've seen some BCs, some C and Ds. It seems like most people are going with B and C.
Okay.
Well, so Kesha, do you want to walk us through? What's your thought process here? How would you go
Yes,
about this?
I will walk through. So this question comes from the Cloud Concepts domain. And in order to answer this question correctly, you have to understand the 6 advantages of cloud computing. You have to understand the shared responsibility model, and you have to understand existing support plans. So on this slide, I've given you the titles to the lessons. So if you had issues answering that question, if you go to the free course and watch these lessons, it should help you learn what you need to learn in order to answer the questions. Okay. So when I first read this question, the one thing that I notice, and Mattias mentioned this, you have to choose 2. So when I look at answer A, gain access to AWS support, that's true. They're a team of dedicated AWS experts to help you with custom software development. And so I would say, and I hope many of you said, that no, that's not the right answer. You do get access to AWS support, but there's a stipulation. AWS support does not help you with code development, debugging custom software, or system administration tasks. So A is a big no. What about B? B is one of the right answers. So because of the AWS global infrastructure, you're able to operate production workloads, give it high availability, scalability, fault tolerance, and all that good stuff. So as long as you understand the 6 advantages of cloud, you'll pick that answer. What about C? Provision exactly the right type and size of computing resources you want. Yeah, that's another right answer. So an advantage of moving to the cloud is that you're able to stop guessing capacity. D, well, we already picked the 2 that are right. So
I
you
think
already
it's
know.
valuable to still go through the rest,
Yeah, I
though, right?
will. You already know that D is wrong. It said shift the responsibility of security to AWS. No, there's a shared responsibility model. So AWS is responsible for security of the cloud. You are responsible for security in the cloud. And then the last one, have direct control over servers. No, there are a lot of solutions that are serverless, and we go serverless because we don't want to have direct control. We don't want to manage the underlying infrastructure. So, yeah, that's how I would answer that question.
Awesome. Yeah, that what you were mentioning about serverless comes back to the thing I was mentioning earlier, that if you get the control, you have to take the responsibility, and that's a cost that you, in many cases, don't want to have to take on yourself, right? And so shifting that responsibility to AWS, letting them do the undifferentiated heavy lifting, as they always say, that is the stuff that you want to try to do. It makes us more efficient and therefore more effective at the things that we're trying to do, because we don't have to spend so much time doing the other things that don't matter as much. So yeah, that's excellent. I do recommend that as you're going through the responses like this, even when you do come to 2 correct responses, you should still go through the rest of them to make sure that you are that you know why those ones are wrong answers as well, especially when you're studying, but also it's important to double check while you're going through the exam. Now, do you have a tip for us as well,
Yeah,
Kesha?
so I have an exam tip. Whenever you're taking the exam, like Matthias mentioned earlier, you have the opportunity to go back. And so if there's a question that you're unsure of, you can always flag it or mark it and return to it later before your time is up in order to answer that question.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really useful. All right, well, let's keep moving. Let's take a look at question number 2, and the time starts now. You have 1 minute. All right, we're halfway through. We're seeing some answers come in. This is good. This is good. You got to commit to an answer. Coming up on time here. All right, put your responses in. Even if you're not sure, guess. It's better to guess. And even if you're going to mark it to move on, go ahead and guess. Put something in. All right, I see a number of responses coming in. There are C's and D's. Those seem to be the most popular ones. Is that, let's see, C's and D's. Yeah, all right. So let's see. Do you want to walk us now through the thought process for this one?
Sure. So this one
Thanks.
comes from the technology domain. If you had issues or you had questions about answering it, I'm showing here the lessons in the CCP course that you can review. So you have to know about databases, analytics services, application security services, and migration and transfer services. Okay, so when I read a question like this, I always look for keywords. So I've highlighted in red the keyword that jumps out to me. So easiest. So whenever you see keywords like easiest or most efficient or most cost effective, that's a signal that there could be more than one answer that's right, but you want to pick the answer in this case that's the easiest to implement. So what about A, import the data into the RDS management console? So basically you could import the data into my SQL database and query. That's feasible. You could do that. So maybe that's the answer, but you have to keep reading. What about B, Macy? What do y'all think? Yay or nay?
Hmm. Personally, I'm thinking
No,
no on Macy.
no. So Macy can detect sensitive data on S3. So there is a relationship between Macy and looking at data on S3, but you don't use SQL queries with Macy. So no. What about C?
Athena.
Maybe. I mean,
Hmm.
Athena allows you to query S3 using standard SQL. That sounds like it fits the bill. So for now, we'll leave a question mark. What about D?
Hmm.
No. So DMS does help you migrate databases to or within AWS, and S3 can actually be a target or a source. But DynamoDB is non-relational, and you typically, I say typically, don't run standard SQL queries. Okay, and so now you're left with two, RDS or Athena. So which one is
Hmm.
the easiest?
Hmm.
Athena.
Yeah, it's a lot more work to be dealing with RDS if you
Oh
can
yeah.
just point Athena straight to your to your S3 bucket, right? So,
Yep. So that's
yeah.
the easiest. That's how I would approach that. So just always look for keywords.
Yeah, so hey, I want to call something out here. One of the people involved, Davo, was mentioning that he said, I answered C, but I feel it might be wrong because D includes easy querying. Aha, but then realized now that's a tricky question. Yes,
Oh, they will try
exactly
to
that.
trick you. Believe me, they will try to
I mean,
trick
that's
you.
Yep, that's their job fundamentally. In
Oh
fact, they
yeah.
call it out in the exam guide. They're like they say these are the distractors, the ones that people who don't have enough familiarity with the material are likely to choose. They would feel like that might be the right answer, and it's because it leads you down that path, but it is not the way to figure out whether it's the right answer. So I think actually that this process that you've just shown, Kesha, is a really valuable one of going through all the responses and eliminating responses that can't be the right ones. Because before you start saying, oh, is this easier than that one, you want to make sure that you're comparing
Right.
ones that are accurate, right?
Right.
So like you can't yeah, you can't be choosing one of the wrong answers that's invalid. It's not easier even if it looks like it. So it's a useful technique to make sure you understand what's going on, eliminate the wrong things, then evaluate them, figure out like easiest and whatnot, choose exactly the right number, and then I always recommend that you validate. You double check your answers as well. Go back to the question and say, hey, does this actually line up with what they were asking? Because the reason they ask a question is because it matters, right? I always imagine that each of these questions is like around a meeting room table or something like that, and somebody says, "Hey, what about this? Which is the easiest way for us to do this thing?" And then we all, as the respondents in that room, have to try to figure out, oh, well, what are the options? And they're like, should we do this thing or should we do this thing? It's like, oh, well, no, we can't do that one. That one's not possible, and that one's easier. Let's go for that one. At
Yep.
least it helps you to know where to move forward for more investigation or whatever. So these things are actually real world, even though they feel a little exam-ish. It's an exam, so it kind of makes sense, right? But anyway, yeah. So that is the stuff that you should keep in mind about going through this. Are there any other tips you wanted to add about this question here, Kesha?
Well, just in general, even though this is the easiest exam, it's still kind of tricky. So don't go in there with the mindset, I don't even have to study. It's the easiest exam. So yeah, it is. There are a lot of distractors and trick answers. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to pay attention to those things. I'm glad people are having fun. Oh, and I also wanted to call out some people had made some comments earlier that they'd been using ACG material to pass this particular exam, got a lot of value out of it. I didn't see whether it was your course yet because I know it's so new, but
It's
a
very
lot of people
new.
are getting a lot of value out of it. So thanks for the shout outs. So, all right. I guess yeah. So the exam tip here. Do
Yeah,
you
so
want to
this
talk
is
through that a little?
something that I mentioned earlier, and I make sure in the course to help you understand like the real world use cases. So for this entry level exam, you still have to understand how the services fit together in the real world. So I
Hmm.
kind of talked about that earlier. So yeah.
Cool, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep trucking along. Let's take a look at question number 3. We have 60 seconds. Well, you have 60 seconds. I guess we do too. But. I'll try and let you read now. All right, halfway through. Feel free to put your answers in whenever you've got them. Remember, if you answer early, you're buying yourself more time for other questions. I mean, not in this live stream, but in the real situation you would be. Good practice. All right, final seconds here. Go ahead and put your answers in. All right, I see a bunch of C and E's coming up, a bit of A and C. Most people are answering the multiple responses, the two of them. They noticed that, which is really important. Yeah. You have to answer both of them correctly or you get 0 points. So yeah, you don't get half the points if you get only one of them, by the way, because that would make it easier to guess. And the whole purpose of this multiple response is to make it harder to guess. So. All right, I see lots of C and E's. Do you want to walk us through, Kesha, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so to answer this one, you have to understand databases and EC2. So that is a hint to one of the correct answers. And like I said, these are the lessons in the CCP course. Okay, so the first thing I would notice, like Mattias mentioned, the choose two. So you're looking for two correct answers. So if you have to know about EC2, that must mean EC2 is one of the correct answers. So in order for you to have complete control over your database, you can install your database software directly on EC2. So that's one of the correct answers. What about
many people are furiously changing their responses now? No, I'm kidding, they're not.
It's too late.
But
you can't
a
change
lot
it
of people
now.
got themselves tripped up. So make sure
that's a tricky
that
one.
It is. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
What about document DB? Well, if you know about document DB, it's for it supports MongoDB, not SQL Server. What about C, RDS?
Relational Database Service?
Yep. RDS supports several popular database engines. SQL Server is one of them. All right, so you know the rest are wrong. DynamoDB? Nope. That is NoSQL, key value document database. And Aurora? No. So you just have to know Aurora supports Postgres and MySQL. That's it. It doesn't support SQL Server.
I think this actually might be one of the things that a number of people who might not have gotten into this quite as deeply yet would get tripped up by. I wonder if people were looking at SQL Server and thinking generic, thinking it's a database that serves the data and it handles SQL queries. But that's not what we're talking about. SQL Server is the Microsoft SQL Server database. It's a specific type of database that is supported in some circumstances and not others. And that is one of those key things that when you understand that, then you notice, oh, that's capitalized, and oh, that's that thing that I learned about, and oh, now I see how this is not right, because that's not the way that Aurora works. Aurora works in a rather different way, and that's why it can't support that. And so is that a helpful thing for any of you out there who are watching? Did that throw you off? Was I right about that? Or you'll have to let us know in the comments. But anyway, let's have you take a look at the exam tip while people are typing up more comments. And oh, by the way, questions while we're going. We're happy to answer more questions either now or at the end. So
right.
I
think Mattias mentioned this earlier, that you can typically eliminate. Well, this is what I found. You can typically eliminate at least 2 answers that are obviously incorrect. So in that last question, document DB is for MongoDB, not for SQL Server. So to me, that one was obviously incorrect. And then DynamoDB, that one was obviously incorrect. So if you can immediately eliminate at least 2, that will help you figure out the correct answers.
Yeah, I think that's a really useful thing, and a number of people have been saying that yes, they were tricked by some of those things. I did see that somebody got it right. I should scroll up. Was it Spring Doyle ANC? Congratulations. Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, but don't feel bad for getting tripped up either. In fact, that's the reason you're here, right? I mean, if we all knew everything, then what would be the point of learning new stuff?
Right.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, awesome that you all put those responses in. You should be happy that you did that. And if you're watching the replay, that you wrote them down on a piece of paper or something, because it's important to commit to something even if you're not into 3. So now you're choosing 2 of 3, which is a way more straightforward thing to do, right?
Yep.
So it's not as overwhelming as it might otherwise feel. So, all right. With all that said, I think that we should probably jump into the next question.
Yep. There it is.
All right, 1 minute starts now. Halfway through our time. I know this is a longer scenario, but
Oh,
hopefully you're
yeah. Some of the
trucking through
scenarios
this.
you have to read at least 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
At least I do.
I think we all do.
Mhm.
All right, last few seconds. Put your answers in, and let's take a look at how we go through this one. I see a few people have been saying B. I think there was a person who answered A. Somebody misread and answered 2 things, A and B. So,
Okay.
all right, what are we looking at?
Okay, so to answer this one, you have to know about SQS, SNS, SES, and they all sound alike, and IAM. Okay, so again, like I told you, look for key phrases that signal answers. So when I read this paragraph of a scenario, I zoom in on loose coupling. And so that's the keyword that helps me pick the right answer. So SNS is the simple notification service. You use it to send emails and text messages. So that is not right. What about B, the simple queue service, SQS? Yes, that's the answer. It's a queuing service. It's used to build loosely coupled systems with asynchronous messaging. So, yeah. So now you know that C is wrong. That's the simple email service that allows you to send richly formatted emails, HTML emails. And then D, IAM, that's a security service that allows you to control access to your AWS resources. And so the main tip that I want to give for this one is when you read some of these questions, there is what I call a lot of fluff, just extra things that just, I believe, are there to kind of just distract you and trip you up, and you can ignore them. So for this question, like the first few sentences don't even matter. And I've heard some people actually start at the end with reading the
Mm-hmm.
question first. So in this case, which service will promote loose coupling between the 2 components using asynchronous integration? If I just read that question, I can pick the right answer. So yeah, there's just a lot of fluff um, that you can just ignore.
Yeah, that's an exam tip, definitely, to take a look at that kicker. I've heard people mention about that last little bit. That's the really critical thing to answer. Everything else is context, and that's the key question. So reading that first can often lead you to the right response. So yeah, congrats to everyone who picked B, the right answer. I think someone might have gotten tripped up by the simple notification service, thinking maybe they were going to be watching the notifications programmatically, which is possible, but SQS is definitely still the right service for this loose coupling here. You have other issues that you deal with if you were trying to do SNS. So, all right, well, I think that maybe we should move on to the next question so we can get through some more of them. So.
Yep, we have
All right,
five more questions to go. Here's
oh,
number
well,
5.
if we get to them, we'll see. All right, your time starts. We'll get through as many as we can.
Yep.
Hopefully people are finding it valuable to go through the questions like this. So. Halfway through. Answers are coming in.
What are some of the answers?
So far, well, maybe I don't want to spoil it for the other people who are still thinking.
That are still trying, yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
All right, we're running into the end. There are interestingly far fewer answers this time, which means that people aren't necessarily jumping to commit to something. So,
okay.
But we're seeing a bunch of A's, some B's, C and E, E. I don't know. Maybe they're a little bit behind in the stream. I'm not sure. But anyway, mostly B's and a few A's. So, all right. Do you want to walk us through?
Okay. Yep. So to answer this one, this is just a look at what you need to know: support plans, governance services, and databases. Okay. So again, key phrases. I've highlighted them in red. They want to hire their own DBA to manage their database, and they want control and flexibility. And so for A, install the MySQL database directly on an EC2 instance is the right answer, because when you do this, it gives you complete control over the database about when backups happen, for replication and clustering. Like, you are responsible 100%. You have flexibility and control to do whatever you want. Now, why is B not the right answer? So B is not right. RDS does provide a lot of value, like automated backups and software patching, but it doesn't give the customer complete control and flexibility. And that is a requirement when you read this question. So that's there to trick you.
Yeah.
Systems manager, that's not right. The database actually needs to be installed first. And then the on-premises database piece of the answer doesn't meet the requirement of launching the database on our AWS. And D, all right, we learned earlier that AWS support will not do that for you. No cases for code development, custom software development, or system admin tasks.
Indeed.
Yeah, so that's that one.
So you've got a tip that I think is a pretty useful one. I was actually thinking, so let's just jump into this tip here, because I think people can get a lot of good value out of it.
So for this one, it's actually possible that the answers to one question can help you answer another question. That's why it's always important to flag the questions that you're unsure of. And I remember when I was taking the Alexa specialty exam, this was very true, that an answer from one question would actually help me answer a previous question. So just keep that in mind, and just make sure that you always flag or mark the ones that you're not sure of, because an upcoming question could potentially help you go back and answer that question.
Yeah, I imagine a question might say something like, the company that you're working with is going to use SQS, the simple queue service, to loosely couple their systems to do blah, blah, blah. And so then what about this other thing that's related to it? And you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Let's go back a couple questions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and someone else has also called out that it's helpful that in some cases the full service is spelled out. So if it had just said SQS, SNS, and SES, then it might have been a little bit harder. But if
That's
it
true.
gave them the extra information, the simple email service, the simple queue service, the simple notification service, and they're like, oh yeah, not that one, not that, there we go, right?
Yeah.
So you can definitely draw information from the rest of these things. Something to be aware of is that the questions will never lie to you, and that's why this is an exam tip. The questions themselves are telling you truth. The responses, you
Right.
always have to question. You
Right.
always are, they might say things that aren't possible. Then that's your job to recognize that that's not a valid option. So,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, so there's a question. Is B absolutely wrong, or is it partially wrong, but you would count it as wrong anyway? So I think maybe what the question is around, so you can take backups using RDS, and you can do some replication using RDS. And if you had DBAs, they could still, manage schemas and, do some of those things. When you look at that, would you maybe have an argument to say that RDS could be right? Or would you say that clustering is one of the key things that sort of locks you out?
Well, I would just say anytime that you're installing software directly on EC2, in this case, a database, you have control and flexibility to do whatever you need to do. And so that's why A is the correct answer.
Yeah, so I think the control and flexibility being the key part of the
Right.
question means that you're probably looking at the one that emphasizes control and flexibility. Clustering is probably another thing that you might RDS might not do the clustering the same way that your DBAs might want to, and all those sorts of things.
Hmm.
So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, is there anything more that we want to talk about for that, or?
Can't
Oh,
think of anything else.
actually, there's one more question that's come in. Isn't the
Okay.
storage on an EC2 instance non-durable? So that's actually a useful question. How do you deal with data durability on EC2? Is it possible to make it durable?
Make it durable.
Yeah, I mean, so you can't assume that the elastic block store volume is going to survive, for example, but that doesn't mean that you can't do similar things to what you would do in your own data center. And I think the
Yeah,
point
that's true.
of the question is sort of getting at that you are wanting that control. You already have people who are getting into that, and so they would be managing that durability across multiple instances. That's why they're looking at replication and clustering, so that you have that durability. And additionally, you can do things at the EBS level, basically the virtual hard drive level, to make sure that the durability is what you want. You don't get the same level of durability maybe as S3, because that one's just insane in terms of its
Hmm.
durability. But you're also not interacting with it as object storage. You need the block storage. But we're getting a little bit probably too deep for the cloud practitioner and some of this stuff. So yeah. Anyway, I hope that sort of gives a little bit of context. But we're probably good to move on and
Yep. Just
take
know
a look at
that when you install it on EC2, it's yours. You do whatever you want to do with it.
control and flexibility.
Yep.
That's the key, right? That's what the kicker's getting at. So, all right. Well,
Okay.
let's
Oh,
jump
go
into
ahead.
question 6.
Yep. So this
Time starts
is
now. About halfway through. Some responses are coming in. That's good. I feel like throwing people off and saying that most people are answering F, but they're not. All right. we're running out of time. Get your response in. We have a lot of D's and at least one B. Let's jump in so that we can get through a couple more questions. And if you have any questions for us that you want us to answer, keep putting them in the chat because I'm not sure we're going to have a lot of time at the end. So.
Yep. So you just have to understand databases, security services, and S3. So when I read this question, there are words that jump out: cost effective, storage and retrieval. And then also once or twice a year also helps answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
So DynamoDB, A, that's not right. Artifact, now this one is tricky because Artifact is related to compliance documents, but it's not for long-term data storage. So I think this is like a trick answer. And C, Elasticache, that's in-memory data store. It's not used for archiving data. And then that leaves us with S3 Glacier Deep Archive.
All right. Yeah, so it seems like a lot of people got that one right.
Yeah.
And not too many people were tricked by that B archive. So that's good.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add on this, or let's maybe just jump into question 7?
No more
Go through some
exam
more.
tips. So 7? Here's
All
7.
right, time starts now. All right, halfway. I see a lot of responses coming in, but until recently, most of them were single responses, and they missed the choose 3. Mm-hmm.
You have to be careful. You have to make sure you read it.
Yeah. All right.
Correct number.
Yeah, I mean it's such an important thing. I think actually the software blocks you from moving forward if you haven't done the right number, so it's a little bit easier than in our little practice session here. But all right, so we see some ABD, some ACD, BCE. Wow, we've got a number BDE, ADB. Wow, we got a bunch of different options.
Okay, so you just really have to know all about Trusted Advisor. And you have to know like the first 3, A, B, and C. Those are checks provided by Trusted Advisor. The last 2, service is down. Trusted Advisor will not tell you if a service is down, and it will not tell you about upcoming user interface changes to the console. But I really wish it did, but it doesn't. So for this one, you just have to know Trusted Advisor.
Well,
And then
there you
here,
go.
I just wanted to show you just a quick look at the CCP course. So on the left-hand side, you have before. On the right-hand side, as you hover over the little circles, more information is revealed. So that's just a quick look at the course.
Excellent.
So we have
Yeah,
like 5 minutes left.
5 minutes. Well, I think people are getting value from this, so let's march forward. This is
Okay.
useful. Let's take a look at question 8. I think we'll shorten the time just a little bit as well. But
Okay.
your time starts now. All right, time's up. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. All right, feel free to put your responses into the chat.
So for this one, let's see.
Yeah, let's jump in.
You just have to know about generating and storing encryption keys on AWS. And so the correct answers are B, I'm trying to get to it, B and D. They allow you to generate and store encryption keys.
Yeah, and some people saw that. Sorry about all the pressure, but yes, I think that the it's the familiarity, right? If you've gone through the course, you've done you've been studying this stuff. When you look at these things, you're like, oh, this thing does this, this thing does this. Ah, okay, yeah, it's this one and it's that one. There will be
Yeah.
some thinking through, but most of
Yeah.
the time they jump out at you. So, all right, I don't know if we're going to squeeze two more questions in, but let's jump to the
Uh,
next one.
let's just give
Oh,
them
did you?
15 seconds.
Sure. Ah, it's a
This is
short one
billing
too.
and pricing.
Yeah.
So for this one, you just have to understand the different support plans and how they work and what type of support cases that plan is allowed to open and through which mechanism, phone, email, or chat.
So some people have definitely already started answering B, and it's because they're familiar with this material. They can
Yes.
take a look at it. They can jump to the responses. Good for you all, but don't feel bad if you need more time for this either. I know we're going really fast at the end here,
Yeah, we have just
to
one
try
more
to get stuff
question.
in. Yeah, but yeah, understanding how those different options compare is a useful thing
You have
because
to
you're going to
know
be
that.
planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that shows up on the cloud practitioner exam because I think that it's just such a foundational thing, and when you get into the more technical exams, this doesn't tend to come up as much anymore. But it's still important to know. So, all right, let's jump to the last question. I'm sure even if it goes a minute extra, it's people will
Okay.
forgive us. All right. Off we go with the question.
Okay, so for this one, you really have to know AWS organizations and how that works. So the keywords for this question manages several AWS accounts. So AWS organizations allows you to do that, and through consolidated billing, you're able to have one account use resources from another account. And so the answer is A.
Yeah,
Everything
it's
else is
definitely
wrong.
it is. Do you want to just mention something quickly about B? Someone was calling that out, and I think that it's a few people actually were thinking maybe that or maybe I'm reading the previous one, but it's definitely one that people could still choose periodically. So do you want to just briefly talk about why B is wrong?
So when you think about managing AWS accounts, this one is what I call a trick one because they've included control tower. But service control policies, they more so they don't grant permissions, they only restrict them. And so whenever you're thinking about AWS organizations and consolidated billing and allowing one account to use resources, in this case, a convertible reserved instance in another account, that's how you would do it. You would do it through consolidated billing on AWS organizations.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Someone's mentioning Control Tower can also create multiple accounts for you, but really
Mhm.
the key here is that you're going for consolidated billing rather than a security control. So
Mhm.
yeah. Well, all right. I hope that all of you viewers have definitely been getting some value out of this. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk through all of this stuff with us, Kesha. Just before we wrap up, I don't know if we'll have any chance to answer any more questions if they come through. We'll maybe see if we can do that. But while people might be furiously typing those, let's take a quick look at a couple of things that you've got to put up. So there's some contact information
Yeah.
for
Yep.
us, and
Yeah. So I would just say if we didn't get a chance to answer your question today, join us over in Discord. There's actually a channel, AWS CCP Study. It's a study group, and I will be monitoring that. So if we didn't get to answer your question today, please drop it in Discord, and I will get to it.
is such a valuable place. A lot of people get so much value on our Discord. So we definitely recommend that you join our Discord and engage people. There are a lot of people who are studying this. You can get a lot of value by talking with them. And like Kesha said, she's there too. So hey, I mean, you can get answers from the expert, the neurosurgeon slash top secret rocket engineer. No, I don't know. No, but all of those other accolades that were actually true. Machine learning hero and Alexa champion, and obviously highly skilled at all of this AWS stuff, and the author of this amazing course, which we will reiterate is free for the month of July 2021. Yes. So get going on that sooner rather than later, because you don't want to be missing out on that. But we hope that you all have had a lot of good value from our time together today. And so I just want to say one more time, thank you, Kesha, but also thank you to all the other people who've behind the scenes been helping to make this happen. There's so many other people. Matt's been running the show. We've had Mel organizing. We've had moderators as well, helping out with so much stuff. So thank you to all of them. But yeah, so I guess we should sign off. What is it? Keep being awesome, Cloud Guru. Oh, we didn't synchronize it. We should have practiced.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
All right, 1, 2, 3. Keep being awesome, Cloud Gurus. Oh man, synchronizing stuff on these things is. All right, cut. We got to be done. Thank you all for coming. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.